The following module talks about different concepts and definitions of health, measures and indicators of health. Health, as discussed, relates to individual, community and country. The definition of health is of debate, and the popular, most commonly used definition of health refers to absence of disease, is related to wealth or well-being, and poor health situations are often highly associated with poor socio-economic conditions requiring investment in health. Therefore, health is also a relationship between person and environment, wherein issues of imperfect man and imperfect environment have been considered. Therefore, factors such as social, psychological, economic and political factors are also many of the different dimensions of health that need to be considered. There are various measures associated with the concepts and the definition of health, such as rate, ratio, incidence, prevalence, and the definitions of these measures are discussed in the following module. There are also many specific indicators of health, such as reproductive health indicators, which include maternal mortality rate, neonatal mortality rate, etc. Similarly, there are also indicators relevant to antenatal care, delivery care, child care and child nutrition indicators.
I am Dr. C.P. Prakasham, retired professor from International Institute for Population Sciences, Mumbai. Module 3, Concepts and Definitions of Health. In this module, we will learn about concept and definition of health. Number 1, concepts of health. Number 2, definition of health. Number 3, measures of health. Number 4, indicators of health, RCH. The word health is frequently identified as absence of disease. Also, better health of a person is related to wealth or well-being. Poor health situation of a community is highly associated with poor socio-economic conditions of the people and incur heavy expenditure for the government to improve the health of such community. Thus, the aspect of health relates to individual, community and country. Concept of health. Ecologists postulated the hypothesis that health as a dynamic equilibrium between man and his environment, and disease is maladjustment of human organism to environment. This hypothesis brought out two issues: imperfect man and imperfect environment. Concomitant development in social science revealed that health is not only absence of disease, it is also influenced by socio-physiological, cultural, economic and political factors of the people concerned. Hence, definition of health incorporated socio-biological and other aspects. Definition of health. World Health Organization 1948 defines health as health is a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being and not merely absence of disease or infirmity. This definition of health has further modified as ability to lead a socially and economically productive life. The WHO definition of health has criticized for state of complete and so on, which is practically difficult to achieve, and hence many operational definitions have evolved by examining positive and negative aspects of health. WHO study group suggested that health can be seen as a condition or quality of human organism expressing the adequate functioning of the organism in given conditions, genetic or environment. In a limited sense, health has been understood as no obvious evidence of disease and that a person is functioning normally according to the age, sex, community and geographic region of the person. The WHO definition of health has been expanded by adding spiritual, emotional, vocational and political dimension as more. Hence, health is looked into many dimensions such as physical dimension, mental dimension, social dimension, spiritual dimension, emotional dimension, vocational dimension, philosophical dimension, cultural dimension, environmental dimension, socio-economic dimension and curative and preventive dimension, etc. In the recent period, health is defined as relative concept. One example is birth weight less than 2.5, BP out of range of 80 to 120, etc. Comparing the standard value with the observed units and health condition of individual has been decided. Keeping in view of normal deviation, the WHO definition of health introduced the concept of well-being. The well-being is measured in terms of 1. Standard of living, 2. Level of living, 3. Quality of life, 4. Physical quality of life index and 5. Human development index. Measures of health. Disease occurrence. Health is measured with positive indicator and with negative indicator. Positive indicators mostly refers to performance indicators such as number 1. Availability of health personnel and facilities. Number 2. ANC, PNC and delivery. Number 3. Child care, care of elderly, etc. Here health focused on disease occurrence is discussed initially. Most measures of diseases occurrence involve rates and sometimes ratios. Ratio, the value obtained by dividing one quantity by another. Sex ratio, female by male multiplied by 1000. In ratio, the numerator and denominator are usually separate and distinct quantities, neither being included in the other, namely number of males in the country compared to number of females. Rate, the rate is a measure of the frequency with which an event occurs in a defined population in a defined time, namely number of deaths per 100,000 Indians in 1 year. It has a time dimension, whereas proportion, namely number of Indians with cancer divided by total population, does not. Incidence, incidence equal to number of new cases in a fixed time period divided by number of people at risk. Usually the period of study is chosen to be 1 year, in which case we speak of the annual incidence. This gives a proportion ranging from 0 to 1, that is usually in communicating the idea of risk. What is the probability that my patient will get this disease within the time frame? Question mark. Note that you may also see the term cumulative incidence to represent the incident. Survival analysis and life table. The calculation of an incident rate assumes that incidence remains constant during the period of study, but if a long period of study is used, the risk of dying may change over time. Here it becomes necessary to calculate incident rate over a shorter period of time, that is, during which they are relatively constant, and then aggregating them. This is the purpose of survival analysis, and the calculation are presented in the form of life table. A life table typically shows the probability of dying across different age groups. From the incidence proportion, the life table shows the survival probability for each age group, and in a final column, the cumulative survival probability across age groups. This can be graphed. Where a study compare survival analysis and experimental therapy, survival analysis can illustrate the pattern of progenies over time in the experimental and control groups, and statistical method such as the Cox proportional hazards model can be used to calculate the significance of the effect of the intervention or of any other influence. Prevalency. How many people actually have the disease at any point of time? That is, prevalence rate equals to number of people with the disease at a given time divided by number of people at risk multiplied by 1000. It is thus a proportion rather than a rate. Although sometimes it is called a rate, prevalence is influenced by the incidence and by duration of condition, and provides a good way to indicate the burden of disease in a population. Case fatality rate. The proportion of persons with a specific condition who die within a specified time, that is, number of persons suffering with malaria die due to cause of malaria during 1 year. The time frame is typically the period during which the patient is sick from the disease. This works for an infectious diseases but can be problematic for chronic diseases like a cancer that may remit for a period and then prove fatal after a recurrence. In such incidents, we tend to speak of mortality or survival rates rather than case fatality. Attack rate. The attack rate refers to the cumulative incidence of infection over a period of time. This is typically used during an epidemic. The time period may not be indicated but would typically refers to the period of the outbreak. Example, during the influenza outbreak, the attack rate was 12%. Relative risk. The ratio of the risk of a disease or death among the people who are exposed to the risk factor to the risk among the people who are unexposed. This is synonymous with risk ratio. Alternatively, relative risk is defined as the ratio of cumulative incidence rate among those exposed to the rate among those not exposed. To estimate a relative risk, you need a cohort study from which incidence can be calculated. Example, the RR of 1.0 means that the two incident rates are equal so that the factor has no effect. An RR of 2 would indicate that the exposed people were twice as likely to get the disease, and an RR of 0.5 means they were half as likely. Odds ratio. The term odds is defined differently according to the situation, but it is the ratio of the probability of occurrence of an event to that of non-occurrence. If 60 smokers develop a cough and 40 do not, the odds of developing the cough are 60:40, that are 1.5. Note that the probability of developing a cough is 60/100 or 0.6. The odds ratio expresses the association between a risk factor and a disease by comparing the likelihood of disease under two circumstances, such as the risk of a cough among smokers compared to non-smokers. The ratio of two odds is closely related to the concept of relative risk, but they vary. Usefully, feature is that the odds ratio can be calculated from the case control study and does not require knowing incident rate. Example of odds ratio is calculated as they got the disease, did not got the disease, exposed, non-exposed. The cell is given as A, B, C, D. Odds ratio equals to AD by BC. Rate difference. Incident rate of disease among those exposed minus incident among those to expose. This is useful in showing the excess morbidity due to the exposure, the attributable risk, which in turn can be used to indicate the health benefit of removing the exposure. Above rate and ratios have been discussed more in the next chapter with illustrations. Reproductive and child health indicators. Reproductive health is a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity in all matters related to the reproductive system and its functions and the process. ICPD Program of Action 1994. Reproductive health indicators, rates, maternal mortality rate, neonatal mortality rate, infant mortality rate, abortion rate, stillbirth ratio, gynecological morbidity, total fertility rate, contraceptive prevalence rate. Antenatal care. Antenatal care ANC refers to pregnancy related health care which is usually provided by a doctor, an ANM or another health professionals. Ideally, antenatal care should monitor a pregnancy for signs of complications, detect and treat pre-existing and concurrent problems of pregnancy and provide advice and counseling on preventive care, diet during pregnancy, delivery care, postnatal care and related issues. Antenatal care indicators. Percentage of mothers who received any antenatal checkup. Percentage of mothers who had antenatal checkup in first trimester. Percentage of mothers who had 3 or more antenatal checkup. Percentage of mothers who had at least 1 tetanus toxoid injection. Percentage of mothers who blood pressure taken. Percentage of mothers who consume 100 iron folic acid tablets. Percentage of mothers who had full antenatal checkup. Delivery care. Delivery care includes proper hygienic place of delivery, assistance during delivery, information given to men and delivery characteristics, cesarean section, public or private health facilities. Delivery care indicators. Percentage of women delivered at government institutions or at home. Percentage of deliveries at home conducted by skilled health personnel. Percentage of safe delivery. Percentage of mothers who received postnatal care within 2 weeks of delivery. Percentage of mothers who received financial assistance for delivery under JSF. Percentage of births by cesarean section. Percentage of low birth weight among birth cohort. Child nutrition. Nutrition is the intake of food considered in relation to the body's dietary needs. Good nutrition, an adequate, well-balanced diet combined with regular physical activity is a cornerstone of good health. Poor nutrition can lead to reduced immunity, increased susceptibility of disease and impair physically and mental development and reduce productivity. Child care indicators. Percentage of overweight. Weight for height greater than +2 standard deviation among children aged 0 to 5 years. Percentage of underweight. Weight for age less than -2 standard deviation among children aged 0 to 5 years. Percentage of stunting. Height for age less than -2 SD among children aged 0 to 5 years. Percentage of wasting. Weight for height less than -2 standard deviation among children aged 0 to 5 years. Percentage of children aged less than 5 years with ARI symptoms receiving antibiotics that is percentage of children aged 0 to 59 months with suspected pneumonia receiving antibiotics. References. These are the following important references. One has to read that. Questions. 1. Define the term health and discuss. 2. Define incident and prevalence of a disease. 3. Define odds ratio. 4. Define reproductive health. 5. Write down reproductive health indicators measured in terms of rates.